Chapter 1. The View. Grace moved into apartment 19B with one goal: start fresh. After a broken engagement and quitting her ad agency job in Chicago, New York felt like a city big enough to get lost in and find herself again. Jeremy lived in 19C. Photographer, tattooed forearms, mysterious eyes, a man who played music too loud at 2 a.m. and made it sound like poetry. They met in the hallway, both carrying groceries, both sweaty from the August heat. She dropped her keys. He picked them up. "Welcome to the jungle," he said with a crooked smile. She laughed.
"Have survived worse."
Their eyes lingered too long. Something had started. Chapter 2. Framed. Jeremy invited her over one evening to show her his latest project, portraits of strangers in intimate moments. "What kind of moments?" she asked. He handed her a photo. A woman's bare back, a man's hand tangled in her hair. Grace raised an eyebrow. "I only photograph what's real," he said. "And do you pose people?"
"No." Jeremy stepped closer.
"But I wait long enough until they stop pretending." She stared at him, her skin buzzing. That night, she didn't sleep, not because of noise, but because she wanted to be seen like that. Unposed. Undone. Chapter 3. Between Glass and Skin. A week later, Grace invited Jeremy over for wine. They talked about cities, past lovers, and the feeling of starting over. She leaned against the window, the skyline glowing behind her. Jeremy walked over, gently brushing her hair aside. "Can I?" he asked, camera in hand. She nodded. The flash clicked. He lowered the camera, stepped in, and kissed her, soft at first, then deeper. She let him lift her onto the window ledge, the cool glass against her thighs, his hands exploring with reverence. That night, they didn't undress all at once. They peeled each other slowly, like stories. Chapter 4. The Storm Inside. Jeremy grew quiet after that night. More distant, still kind, still thoughtful, but reserved. Grace felt it. The space between texts, the shorter glances. She confronted him. "Are you ghosting me while I'm still here?"
He sighed.
"You're not like the others, Grace. You're not just a chapter." "Then why do you act like you're scared of turning the page?" He touched her cheek. "Because I'm afraid you'll write the ending." She didn't answer. She just kissed him, deep, slow, unforgiving, as the rain slammed against the window. And in that moment, there were no chapters. Just breath, skin, and surrender. Chapter 5. The Exhibition. Weeks later, Jeremy hosted a private gallery show. She came alone, not sure what to expect. Halfway through the exhibit, she found herself framed. A photo of her at the window, lips slightly parted, eyes defiant, backlit by Manhattan. The title, "The Moment I Knew." He stood beside her, nervous. "You showed the world my body. I showed them how I see you. And how's that?" He leaned in, like the last woman I'll ever photograph. She kissed him right there, in front of everyone. Chapter 6. The Rooftop Truth. Jeremy took Grace to the rooftop of their building late one evening. No crowd, just them, wrapped in night and city lights. He held her hand. "I haven't let anyone this close in years." Grace looked up at him. "You're still not letting me in. You're just letting me close." Silence.
Then he pulled her to his chest.
They didn't kiss this time. Instead, she rested her ear over his heartbeat, and he stroked her hair. And for the first time, silence between them felt full, not empty. Chapter 7. Ghosts in the Phone. Grace's ex-fiancé, Daniel, texted her out of nowhere. "Thinking of you. Still wondering what if." Jeremy saw the message pop up while she was cooking. She didn't hide it, but she didn't delete it either. "Do you still wonder too?" he asked. She turned off the stove, walked over, took his hand. "I used to. But that was before I met the man who photographed my soul, before he undressed my body." He kissed her, hard, possessive, not out of jealousy, but out of claiming. That night, they made love with a kind of urgency only truth can bring. Chapter 8. Boundaries and Blindfolds. They explored deeper. Jeremy brought a silk blindfold one evening. "Do you trust me?" Grace nodded. He tied it gently around her eyes. With her sight gone, every breath, whisper, and touch became sharper. He kissed the inside of her wrist, her collarbone, her inner thigh, always just close enough to tease. but never to satisfy. She moaned his name, breathless, desperate. When he finally entered her, it was slow, unrelenting, worshipful. Afterwards, she whispered, "I didn't know I could feel like that." Jeremy pulled her close. "You weren't blindfolded. You were unguarded." Chapter 9. The Distance. Jeremy got an offer to photograph a project in Iceland, 2 months away from New York. He hesitated to tell Grace. When he finally did, she froze. "You already accepted, didn't you?" "I wanted to, but I didn't want to lose you." She stared at the floor. "I'm not something you leave behind like luggage." He reached for her hand. "Come with me." She laughed, bitterly. "I have a life here, Jeremy." That night, they didn't touch. They lay side by side, fully clothed, and yet, both completely exposed in their doubt. Chapter 10. Departure. Jeremy left. Grace helped him pack, even kissed him at the airport. But her eyes were guarded again, like the day they met. They texted, called, had video calls. But the time zones and silence between words grew longer. One morning, she received a FedEx envelope. Inside, a photograph. Her. Asleep in bed, tangled in sheets. Peaceful, bare, his favorite version of her. On the back, a note. "Every image I take now feels like it's missing you in the frame." She booked a ticket to Reykjavik that night. Chapter 11. Reykjavik Reunion. Grace stepped out of the tiny Icelandic airport into bitter wind and light snow. She hadn't told Jeremy she was coming. She found him on a black sand beach, shooting a model in flowing red fabric. He turned, stared, dropped the camera. She walked straight to him. He didn't say a word, just grabbed her waist and kissed her like he'd waited his whole life to do it. "Are you real?" he finally whispered. She grinned through frozen lips. "Touch me and find out." They didn't make it to the hotel. The back seat of the rental car steamed with heat and breathless moans against the glass. Chapter 12. Volcanic Heat. They stayed in a remote cabin near a dormant volcano.
No neighbors.
No phone signal. Inside, everything was firewood warmth and slow-burning heat.
Jérémy Liconde.
Grace lit every part of him. Naked under thick fur blankets, they explored each other with the hunger of lovers who remembered what it felt like to be apart. He tied her wrists gently with a scarf. "Still trust me?" She nodded, eyes dark. They didn't speak for hours. Only moans, gasps, whispered names, until morning light painted their skin gold. Chapter 13. Northern Lights. One night, they walked out wrapped in coats and blankets. The sky erupted in green and violet waves, the northern lights dancing just for them. He knelt down. Grace gasped, but instead of a ring, he pulled out a small leather journal. Inside, 17 photographs of her, moments he'd secretly captured over months. Laughing, reading, sleeping, staring out windows. On the last page, a single line. "If I ever ask you to marry me, it'll be when I'm sure you want to share the darkness with me, not just the light." She whispered, "I already do." Chapter 14. The Gallery in Reykjavik. Jeremy's work was featured in a small Reykjavik gallery. Grace stood beside him as people stared at her image on the wall, fierce, soft, undone. A woman whispered, "That's the photographer's muse." Grace smiled.
No.
"That's the photographer's match." That night, back at the cabin, she asked, "Will you ever stop needing to capture me?" Jeremy ran a hand down her spine. "Only when you stop changing in ways I want to remember." Chapter 15. Back to the city. They returned to New York in February. Snow, traffic, chaos, yet everything felt quieter between them. Anchored, Grace found a note on her pillow. 19B is still yours, but 19C is unlocked. Your choice. She walked down the hall, barefoot, heart racing. Open his door. He stood waiting, shirtless, smile crooked as always. She dropped her bag, unbuttoned her coat. "I think I'll stay and mess up both apartments." He lifted her, carried her to his bed like a promise. Chapter 16. A ring and a question. Spring arrived in New York like a slow confession. One evening, Jeremy asked Grace to come to the roof. Fairy lights were strung between pipes and railings. Jazz played softly from a speaker. A single chair and an easel stood at the center. On the easel, a painting of her, soft, bare, and lit by stars. He stepped behind her and whispered, "Will you be my forever muse?" She turned. He was on one knee, holding not just a ring, but a photo. The one he took the night she first blindfolded herself for him. I want every version of you, Grace. Forever. She kissed him through happy tears. Then come get them. Chapter 17, Cold Feet and Heated Skin. As the wedding approached, Grace grew quiet. One night, she stood naked before the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Jeremy came in, wrapped his arms around her. Cold feet, he asked gently. I've never belonged to anyone before. You still won't, he whispered, running his fingers down her arms. You'll belong with someone. That night, they made love with more tenderness than heat. A slow kind of closeness, a reverent unraveling. A reminder, it's not about ownership, but about choosing again and again. Chapter 18, A Stranger's Eyes. At a pre-wedding event, Grace noticed a woman watching Jeremy. Tall, poised, clearly someone from his past.
Ex.
Grace asked later. Jeremy didn't flinch. She posed for me once. We were lovers, briefly. Jealousy crept in. Later that night, she asked him, Am I just another frame on your wall? He touched her cheek. You're the gallery. Then he pressed her against the kitchen counter, lifted her skirt, and whispered into her mouth between kisses. And I could spend a lifetime walking through you. Chapter 19, The Almost Goodbye. The night before the wedding, Grace sat alone in her old apartment, 19B. Just one night, she told him. For memory's sake, she opened a journal and wrote, What if I ruin it? What if I ruin him? A knock at the door. Jeremy. He didn't say anything, just walked in and sat beside her on the floor. I won't ask what you wrote, he said, but I'll tell you this. I'm not here to be protected from you. I'm here to be with you. They didn't make love that night. They just slept, tangled, safe, full of silence and certainty. Chapter 20, The Vow. The ceremony was on a Brooklyn rooftop. Sunlight, flowers, friends. But in the moment they stood before each other, the world blurred. Jeremy, I swear to photograph you even when your light dims, to hold your hand even when you pull away, to choose you, not just today, but especially on the days when love feels like a decision, not a feeling.
Grace.
I vow to be seen, fully, naked in soul, not just skin. I'll let you find me, again and again, even in the shadows I used to hide. They kissed. And somewhere in the city, a camera shutter clicked. Their next chapter had already begun.